Anthony for breakfast, Triple M Albany. Well, we're catching up with Steve Eagle, who's an expert in sourcing goods and co-founder of How to Buy Australian Made. Good morning, Steve.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Now, look, we were having a discussion a little bit earlier just about how, as I was growing up, I thought, all this manufacturing's moving out of Australia. Why can't the government and people in general see where this is all going to head? And obviously now we've kind of hit a wall now with China, threatening us and all that kind of stuff. And I guess can we sort of reboot local manufacturing? Is that going to be an option for us?
Yeah, I definitely think we can, and I think you're absolutely spot on with your sort of sentiment that when you were growing up, you noticed that Australian manufacturing was in decline. Historically, if you look back at it, through the 1980s, manufacturing was Australia's largest employer, with 16.5% of the workforce was employed in manufacturing. And as you sort of fast forward that through to the 90s and early 2000s, that obviously declined significantly, and today that number sits at around 6%. So it's really dropped off significantly. But I think what's happened in response to the coronavirus and the pandemic that we're in is that people have become more aware of the importance of supporting the Australian supply chain, especially with China and the responses there, and then the political language that's been sort of tossed around. It's really the right time, I think, for Australians to consider how would you go about supporting Australian businesses, and that's really what we're interested to do.
So the pandemic has put a lot of pressure on supply in Australia because of increased demand and decreased supply, hasn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely has, and also off the back of all the lockdowns and the flight restrictions and so on, transport costs have just accelerated. They're up to 50% more of what they were before, and as a result of that, the expense of importing products is increasing. And if you actually consider the cost of an imported product, in a normal environment, not in the pandemic environment, but in a normal environment, it's already about 35 to 40% of the cost is just on freight and logistics and bringing that product into market. So if you strip that number out of Australian-made local products, then all of a sudden we become very cost competitive. And we've actually got a great case study about a business in northern New South Wales that did just that on toilet paper, of all products, in the last 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were sourcing eco-sustainable toilet paper out of China in the city very close to Wuhan. And when Wuhan went into lockdown, then the owner of that business, Matt, and I sat down and had a chat. And I said, mate, why don't you have a look at doing the same thing in Australia? And he was actually able to find a local manufacturer in Australia that price-matched his Chinese-sourced bamboo toilet paper, also doing eco-sustainable toilet paper out of the Australian manufacturer, and now he's gearing up to actually export that toilet paper globally as an Australian-made toilet paper, eco-sustainable product, and at Chinese competitive prices. So those kind of stories are just mind-blowing if you think about the history we have with manufacturing.
I think that's incredible. But look, just generally with products, I mean, it's really hard to find anything now made in Australia. But the cheap overseas imports from countries like China and India and all these other places, I mean, we can't compete with, they're getting paid 5 cents an hour, We're finding it very difficult to compete with that. What might be the solution?
So the solution on that side is about the quality of the product and the traditional heritage of Australian brands that we have. We've got a fantastic global reputation for being a high quality producer. Locally in Australia, we've got some of the best quality laws across the whole board of manufacturing. And if you think about our recent history in manufacturing, it was only sort of 5 or 6 years ago where we were manufacturing cars. Now, why is a car relevant to something cheap coming from India? Well, if you think about what goes into a car, it's every level of manufacturing and every style of material. So you've got ceramics, glass, plastics, rubber, metal, electronics, software, even explosive in the airbags. So all of these types of manufacturing have existed in Australia. And when the automotive companies left, they took the large players out of the market, But the Tier 2 and Tier 3 manufacturing capability absolutely does exist in Australia, and I think there's a huge opportunity right now to leverage that and support, if you like, micro businesses. So while all the pandemic's been going on, the sector of the economy globally that's done really well has been online shopping, all right? Even Amazon has posted that they've grown more in the last 3 months than they did in the prior 10 years. So those businesses, giving them access to Australian-made products, teaching them how to access Australian manufacturing and bring products to market through Australian manufacturing, I think is really where the support needs to be, and that's really what we're encouraging people to look at.
Yeah, I'd love to see local manufacturing reboot and drop our reliance on China. That would be great. Thanks very much for your time. Steve Eagle, co-founder of How to Buy Australian Made. We'll talk again soon.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Triple M Albany.